Hey guys, it's Sabby Sabs, and I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Savage Joy. She's an activist, an author, and she is host of the Unruly Hour podcast. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you so much for reaching out and having me.
Cool. So before we get started, can you tell everyone a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I started a show 4 years ago. And at that point, I was more interviewing candidates. I interviewed Bernie Kratz from across the country, about 200 different ones from different states who all had Bernie's exact platform. And that's kind of how I started out. Then it turned into getting more public figures and activists and doing debates, things like that. But I originally got my activist start through the first Bernie campaign. He kind of woke me up as he did to millions of others. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door and got a taste of, we have to get off our asses. And then it just kind of evolved into all the stuff I'm into now.
Awesome, cool. So I know that you were very, vocal about force the vote for Medicare for all. I know about your story, but for people who will watch this and may not know, can you tell everyone about your health journey?
Sure. So in 2019, not that long ago, I woke up one day without the majority of my sight, just like woke up that way. And I went to the hospital because at first, I was disoriented. Am I still asleep? What's going on? My husband took me to the hospital, and it was there that I was diagnosed with something called myopic degeneration. Super rare. And especially, I was only 39 at the time, so especially someone so young. But after that, my life completely changed. I can't drive. I lost my job because I was unable to see the keyboard. It's been just very traumatic in many ways. I started, walking into walls and tripping and falling, and things I used to enjoy became, a task. I was worried about doing marches and stuff still because I would fall on the concrete. Things like that. And even doing my show has been really, really difficult. But through it all, it's been so traumatic. And at this point, I've lost almost 90% of my sight. So it's gotten, worse and worse. I've been on treatments and such like that, but they cannot restore the sight. The treatments were just to try and stop losing what's left. I've had multiple eye surgeries, like anything and everything you can think of, and nothing has worked. So I'm at the point where I am legally blind. I am going blind. And I have very little eyesight. So, I always tell people this, my story isn't to scare people because it's very rare. But I think it's, an example of how something can happen unexpected and just progressively be so traumatic. And you get thousands of dollars of medical bills, and you find yourself with no job because of the disability, things like that. And that situation is not rare. So I felt very honored that they reached out to me to speak for Force the Vote as the disabled person. I got a lot of pushback, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I want, people to realize that when you are becoming disabled, there is literally nothing you will not do to fight for Medicare for all, or if you have a loved one going through it, when you're seeing, mountains of medical bills, and that's only exacerbating the trauma you're going through from losing your sight or whatever else, you're not going to turn down any suggestion for any kind of movement. You're just not. For people who were against it, I've yet to see a suggestion of another route to go. And now a lot of the same people are saying force the vote when it comes to $15 an hour. So it's, there is some hypocrisy there. But yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of being able to, share the stage with Brother Cornell and Bree and everyone like that. I'm very honored to be able to share my story. Because of that, and because of all the people who reached out to me, I'm now I'm compiling a book of people's personal stories of, medical bankruptcy and things like that. And I'm going to compile them and send them to representatives. So it's not just like 80% of people approve this. Here's faces to the story. Here's the violence it actually is. Here is the pain that actually exists. And if anyone watching has a story they want to share about the monetary troubles of medical pains, you can send it to healthcareviolence@mail.com.
Awesome. Yeah. I imagine when you lost your job, what happened with your health insurance?
Thankfully, I got on my husband's. Thankfully. But that definitely was a concern. Will there be a lapse? I was getting eye injections for the past year and a half. I know it's bad, but it's, it sounds gross, but that's, when you're going blind, you're going to do what you have to do. And that was over $12,000 each eye every 30 days. Now, the health insurance company didn't even want to approve it because it was so rare and I was so young. So they were saying, yes, you need it, but you need to sign this waiver that if, insurance doesn't cover it through the appeal, you will pay yourself. And I'm like, how the hell do you think I'm going to pay $25,000 a month it was just absolutely absurd. So it's a hostage situation. It's, yeah, sorry, you're going blind, but yeah, if you want to try and preserve the sight you have, you're going to have to pay for it. Mm. And, I still had a $5,000 deductible and stuff like that. So I've still spent thousands of dollars, especially on my eye surgeries. So it's still, even with that insurance, it's, it's expensive to be disabled. It's expensive to be sick, and it's expensive to be poor.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes health insurance, they can decide not to cover a certain medication. I know I had that actually happen to me. So I have allergies. They're not as severe as they used to be, thank goodness, thanks to allergy shots. But I did have an allergic reaction. I had just moved to Boston. I've been here like over 9 years now, geez. And I did have health insurance, and I went to the pharmacy to get what I knew at that time, Flonase was prescription. So this was before they made it like over the counter. And then I went to the pharmacy to get that refilled, and they said, we're sorry, but your insurance is not going to cover this anymore. And I was like, what? And they were like, you can pay the full amount. I was like, all right, no biggie. I just pay the full amount. And then they showed me how much it costs, and I thought I was going to pass out.
Absolutely. That's violence. It's violence.
This is crazy. Now, I know like you were, really involved with Force the Vote. For whatever reason, especially on Twitter, there was a divide with Force the Vote. I think some people were on the side with like Jimmy Dore. Some people were on the side with Cenk Uygur. There was definitely a misunderstanding about what would happen if the squad did force the vote. What do you think like caused like some of that confusion?
I think that, personally, I was getting called like Jimmy Minion and stuff. I never even talked to Jimmy. That's not who asked me to do the town hall. I don't even follow him or watch his show. So it was to me, it was a way to divert attention. I'm just going to, make this about a person who I don't like, rather than listen to the fact that you say you've been for Medicare for all for 6 years. I'm going to fight tooth and nail for Medicare for all. And now all of a sudden you're knocking activists who are trying to do it. So it was incredibly disappointing to see so many people we thought were allies just basically not join in, but to actually bash it. And it was a lot of the same people who say move Biden left. Well, we know that ain't gonna happen, but regardless, how the hell do you think you're gonna do that? You can't even say force the vote, and you think you're gonna move this like guy who's acting like a Republican left. When we did force the vote town hall, we had over 130,000 views. The next day, Jimmy Dore was trending, not Medicare for all. And that hit me. That was really, really upsetting because, the actual meaning of force the vote was completely lost. As far as, the squad and whoever, every single one of them was reached out to. Not a single one sent a response back. I was also involved in the protest in DC the day before they voted. I'm not surprised they backed out. But what people missed this wasn't about attacking AOC and the others. What this was about was to use leverage. We knew Pelosi was going to get through again. I mean, we're not delusional. We knew that. Right. But the point was, you campaigned as activists. You said you were going to fight for these things. You told us that we can count on you. You are fighting for this tooth and nail. And then when it came down to it, you were too scared to piss off your mama bear. And that is bullshit. So what would have happened is they would say, before we vote for Pelosi, we want to force the vote. Now, does that mean it's going to pass? No. But A, we would know where people stand, who agreed, who didn't agree. And B, Pelosi would see that and say, okay, well, maybe they are kind of, brave enough to stand up to me. And it would have gotten the discussion moving. But instead, they voted for her. They did not use that leverage. AOC said she wasn't going to do it because $15 minimum wage was set to pass, and she didn't want to interfere with that. Well, that didn't exactly work out. So it was just, if people actually thought about it and actually do support Medicare for all, I don't understand why they would bash what we were trying to do. You're not an activist if you are literally bashing people for trying to do something to better humanity.
No, I agree. I think people were more focused on, I don't like this commentator, so I'm against this thing that they're talking about, instead of actually just looking at the issue for what it was.
Absolutely.
So in reference to the squad, how are you feeling about the squad right now? Because I know like a lot of people are not too happy with them because they feel like they're not pushing for these progressive issues, which they ran on, such as Medicare for all and, $15 minimum wage. What is your feeling about them right now?
I didn't participate in the whole like fraud squad thing. Like I wanted to stick to the issues. So while I am incredibly AOC, I've interviewed her. I've never been much of a fan, to be quite honest. Rashida, when I met Rashida, we had the most beautiful heart to heart. I told her about, going blind, everything like that. She held my hands, listened to my story, told me she would fight nonstop to get me that health care. And then I saw her betray me and other people. That hurt like hell. Ro Khanna, I've interviewed 4 times. He has continuously told me he would fight nonstop for Medicare for all. That also bothered me. I feel like it's not just political, it's personal. When these people are literally saying to your face, I will fight for you. And then the opportunity comes and where are they? So I completely understand people's frustration. I don't do the whole cancel thing. I just unfollow them and I'll call them out when they do or say things that, really disgust me or piss me off. But I think, I tend to focus on people like, the Dems as a whole or Biden or something like that, because honestly, I'm kind of over electoral politics to begin with. I mean, my man was cheated twice, and I just don't see what the point is anymore. Not to say I'm not going to vote, but when you see people like AOC and she said, if you get me elected, this is what I'm going to do, and she's not doing that, it makes you discouraged, it makes you distrustful. And I just talked to Nina about that this afternoon. And it's hard to put your faith in people, because politicians are gonna politician.
No, that's 100% true. That's also part of the reason why a lot of people don't vote, because they don't feel like, they say every time someone runs and they say they're going to do this and they end up doing nothing, or they just keep things exactly the same. In reference to Nina, there are some people now also, God, Twitter, on Twitter, because of what has happened with the squad, they're just like, well, I don't want to put my hope or faith in her either, because she's probably going to end up doing the same thing, which is unfortunate and it's unfair, because give someone a chance first to get in there and do those things. But I do feel very differently about her. I feel like she is more vocal.
Yeah. And I addressed that with her as well. I said that people are very disheartened right now. They feel defeated. They're untrusting and stuff. And she said, I totally understand that. She didn't, try to obfuscate or anything. She totally understood. And she said she's seen it too. She gets it. I do kind of hold her, as you do, in a separate category. I think, she's been senator, she's been, these squad people are a lot younger, a lot less experience, and they've been made into like pop culture figures, really more than politicians. So I think it's a different animal. I really do. I think that Nina, to me, I have more hope in her than the squad, but I hope the squad starts doing better, because there are people talking about primarying them, and if people are going to be more left and primary them, then they're going to have to answer to it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I definitely agree with that. When you look at like the progressive movement, I kind of feel like when Bernie dropped out, I felt like we lost our leader. I feel like we have no leader. Maybe that leader could be, Nina. But I felt like things just kind of went, I don't know, just really split like after that. And especially seeing how the DNC treated Bernie, how the media treated Bernie. And for me, for a second, like I felt like all hope was lost. I was just like, here we go again. And they're doing the same thing that they did in 2016, although Bernie got way further along, this time around, but still we ended up with Joe Biden.
Absolutely. Yeah, him dropping, I actually interviewed Bernie's brother, Uncle Larry, and he was saying that he does agree that he thinks Bern dropped because of the pandemic. And I totally agree, because he kept saying, don't go out and vote, don't go out and vote. And Biden refused to co-sign with that and fight to move the primaries. But in any case, I went from Pennsylvania to Iowa for 5 weeks to volunteer for Bernie. I just picked up everything, left my family, left my home, and went to Iowa, which I'd never been in, or didn't know anyone. But I was like, this is the most important state. So that changed me really as an activist, knocking on doors in snow and four below and stuff like that. It really changed me as an activist. And I had so much hope. I really did. I saw the energy. I saw, the excitement, and it was so much more than 2016. And, when he dropped, Super Tuesday, which was 2 days ago, that was the anniversary. That was just one of the worst days of so many of our lives. I think it was that day that our hearts just sunk, and we thought, okay, we're screwed. It's done. We're screwed. And I feel like so many of us just lost hope. I love Bernie. I have a tattoo. He's always going to be my hero. I adore him. I've met him a bunch of times, but we're not divorced, but we are separated, because he says and does things I really wish I could shake him. I'm not thrilled with a lot of the things he's been saying and doing, but the Bernie today on the floor, that's the Bernie I love. That's the Bernie that I campaigned for. So is he still a leader? Absolutely. But I think, as trite as it sounds, I think we learned that we kind of have to be our own leaders.
Yeah, no, agreed. Definitely hear you about Super Tuesday, because I went to Bernie's rally here in Boston. There was over 10,000 people at that rally. And I was pretty close to the stage. So then Super Tuesday happened and Massachusetts went to Biden. And I remember just sitting there thinking to myself, like, what the heck there's no way over 10,000 people came to see, who went to see Biden? Not 10,000 people.
Yes.
So I question that. I wonder about that. I don't get it.
Massachusetts is one of the states that I absolutely feel is inconsistent, without question. Because I have all my relatives are in Mass too. They're like, I've never seen a Biden sign, like, ever. And in Iowa, I never saw. It was so funny. I went to 5 different campaign offices in Iowa, and I never saw a Biden sign once. Never. I did see a lot of Buttigieg, unfortunately, and some Klobuchar, but I never saw Biden. And at my caucus location, he wasn't even viable because he only had 51 people and they needed 123. So all the Biden people had to disperse. And most of them I got to come to Bernie, so that was cool, which I don't understand at all. But that Biden did not have supporters. He really didn't. He was in fourth place until South Carolina. If Miss Liz Warren would have dropped out before Super Tuesday, we would be in a different position. But I think with Biden, it was just Obama nostalgia. I think that's all it was.
Yeah, no, I agree. Plus, like, having lived in South Carolina, I can tell you that people just listen to whatever Clyburn says. Clyburn says we're going to vote for Joe Biden. That's what we're going to do, instead of like seeking out, maybe I should research the candidates and figure out who's best for me. They continuously vote for the same person who continues to harm people in South Carolina by the way that he votes and the things that he does. But you can't get this across to them. South Carolina has like the oldest electorate, and I'm the younger one, so they don't want to listen to me. But so I have one more question for you. When would you say that you became a progressive, and was there one event or incident that pulled you that way?
It was 2015. I voted for Obama twice, and I was like, yay. And I was like, so many people like me were just totally disappointed. He had promise. But at that point it was still, Democrats good, Republicans bad. In my head, it was just, I'm going to vote blue. I wasn't big on social media or anything, so I didn't know like vote blue no matter who or any of that stuff. It just was how I thought. So, but then someone named Bernard Sanders came out in 2015, and I actually heard of him a few months before he decided to run. And he just like spoke to me. Something in him, I was like, I remember I turned to my husband and I said, holy shit, that guy is punk rock. He's just on the floor. Like, what was the video? He was saying, he's like, I will not yield. And he's like, I hold you in contempt. I hold you in contempt. I hold you in contempt. And I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? So that kind of started it. And I had never campaigned for anyone or anything like that. And I remember Bernie was on an interview with Barbara Walters, and he said, something about humanity. And it was at that moment that I was like, I'm going to give my heart and soul to this man. I am going to push and do anything and everything. So I started, with phone calls and door knocking, and I organized a march and all kinds of stuff. And that kind of got me comfortable with acting. So then I started organizing marches for Muslim solidarity and immigrant solidarity and Black Lives Matter. And so I've probably organized at least 30 rallies, marches, protests in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area in the past 5 years. Because it was that got the ball rolling and, made me more comfortable to like use a megaphone and stuff like that. It just it wasn't even really gradual. It just happened, it was like something, it just lit a spark. And I've heard that story a million times. Like so many people say that. I'd love to say I was, I've been doing this for 20 years or something, but it's not the case. I was like, God, what, at least 35, 36 before I, woke up. Mm-hmm. Better late than never, I guess.
Yeah, no, similar situation here. I voted for Obama twice, and it was after Obama, I was just like, maybe Democrats are just as bad as Republicans. I was like, this is the same guy that ran on Yes We Can and Time for a Change. Nothing changed. It was such a disappointment. I think I had like a lot of hope for Obama. And then he got in office, and I was just really disappointed, especially like as an African American. I was like, really? Like, this is what you give us, man. Like, come on. So it was definitely after him, and Bernie was a big, like, I think, push for me. I was like, oh, somebody who is real
Yeah.
and authentic. So that's kind of, what led me that way. But Joy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking me.
And everybody, I'll be sure to leave all of Joy's links in the description below. And I'm out. Bye,
Thank
Joy.
you so much.
Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.